All right, so we're going to talk about audiovisual translation today. We're going to talk about where we are, where we're going, and what the difference is between audiovisual translation and text translation. We'll talk a little bit about the future, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the world today. So what I'm going to try and cover in the 25 minutes or so is what is audiovisual translation. I think we all know basically what it is. Well, the difference is, as I said, some history of audiovisual or the world of video and therefore audiovisual translation, and where we are today, where we will be tomorrow. Tomorrow meaning the foreseeable future, and then the future meaning where we hope to be in sometime in the future without knowing when. And then finally, we'll have some thoughts about the whole situation. So before we start the real presentation, let's talk a little bit about the terminology. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard the people talking about captions versus subtitles. This is a very difficult subject because it really depends where you are. If you're in the rest of the world, subtitles and captions are basically interchangeable. Subtitle is the most common term for text that accompanies video content. Subtitles can be in the same language as the video or translated into another language. However, in the USA, we tend to be a little bit different in these things. Captions are designed for viewers who cannot hear the audio in the video. Subtitles are designed for viewers who can hear but do not understand the language in the video. Now, having said that, most people just use captions versus subtitles interchangeably. If you're uploading these things, captions or subtitles, into Vimeo, for example, it will actually ask you whether they're captions or subtitles. I've yet to discover any difference whether you say it's a caption or it's a subtitle. The next thing is closed captions versus open captions or subtitles. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but open subtitles are burned into the video file. Closed captions are the things you can turn on and off by usually using the CC button. And voiceover versus dubbing. Usually, dubbing means, as we heard in the previous presentation, dubbing usually means synchronizing the sound with the lip movement. So voiceover is just another audio track laid on over the top without any idea of synchronizing those lip movements. So, what is audio-visual translation? This isn't going to be a great surprise to you. It's translating videos to provide captions and subtitles and voiceovers for accessibility and comprehension. Now, I'm using accessibility here in the wider sense of the word. In the US, we tend to talk about accessibility for people with disabilities, but I'm really talking about accessibility as the ability to access the content of the video no matter what language you speak. If you read a lot of the literature, audiovisual translation tends to be thought about in terms of two major parts of the market: entertainment, which is the Netflix, Hulu's, Amazon Directs of the world, and then gaming. However, we at Dotsub are completely not in those two games, but in the business-oriented videos, which are explainer videos, product demos, outbound marketing, conferences, etc., etc. So how does one normally do audiovisual translation? The primary way is to create a source language template with timing, segmentation, and transcription. And the reason we do that is that the skill set for creating the template is different from the skill set used for translating. So somebody who's very good at timing and segmenting and transcribing may not be very good at the translation, and the other way around. The translator may not be very good at the timing, segmentation, and transcription. There are a few questions that need to be asked. Is there a script? Is it correct, or is the dialogue based on the script? So, if do we use the words from the script completely? Is the script kind of right, or is there no script at all? Is it being used for deaf and hard of hearing viewers? Does it need WCAG compliance? I mean, so for example, does it need sound effects being stated on the screen, like phone ringing, door slamming, woman screams, etc.? Is there on-screen text that needs to be translated? So in many commercial videos, you will see titles of the segment that the person is going to be speaking about on the screen as a slide behind the speaker. So sometimes that needs to be translated because it's relevant to the presentation and is not mentioned in the presentation. The other thing is that captions can be positioned to avoid information on the screen. We have these things called lower thirds, which are usually the name and title of a speaker. You don't want the captions to overwrite that and therefore lose the information that's on the screen. So the caption needs to be positioned to avoid overwriting that information. The next thing is to translate that template into other languages. And you can do in three ways. One, that they're in sequence. So subtitles are the first thing. The captions are translated, and usually using the same timing as the source language. From those subtitles, you may create burn-ins, which is that the subtitles are part of the video file, and so you can't turn them on or turn them off. And then finally, voiceovers or dubbing, which allows you to have the voice spoken in different languages. And as our host said, different countries tend to have different requirements. So, for example, the Scandinavian countries tend to use subtitles, whereas, as you said, Russia tends to use voiceovers or dubbing. And many of my Scandinavian colleagues say that they can speak such good English because they grew up listening to English TV shows while watching the subtitles in their native language. What makes audio-visual translation different? So I think the biggest thing is text translation takes input from one source, and that, of course, is the printed word. Audio-visual translation takes input from at least two sources: the audio track, and therefore the transcription, and then visual clues from the video. So, for example, some languages, the words that are used to count are different depending on the shape of the things you're counting. Now, if you had a pure transcription, you wouldn't have that context. But using the visual clues from the video, you can see that and make it so. It's not a big deal, but it adds to the quality. the thing that you don't usually get in text translation are problems that mask the audio clarity. There are accents. People and every country has the same, like a region of that country where the speech is very difficult to understand from people in other areas of the country. In the UK, it's usually people from Glasgow in Scotland. It's very difficult to understand for the rest of the United Kingdom. There's can be poor quality of audio. That either could be a bad recording or perhaps ambient noise where there's a lot of background noise, perhaps from the audience. There's indistinct speech, like the words did versus didn't. You often hear people say did and didn't, which it can be very difficult to decide which one's which, and especially if you're using a machine automatic speech recognition, it's very difficult to tell. Then there are extraneous noise words like that make the words a little bit more indistinct and the context a little bit more difficult. The other thing is the quality of translation. If you are translating text translation, you're usually translating sentence by sentence, or at least major segment by major segment. The easy trap to fall in with audio-visual translation is that you translate cue by cue, cue being the thing that's on the screen at any one time. And you can imagine that the cue, a concept can be split across several cues in the speech. And so, first of all, the translation is difficult because it may not make sense doing one cue at a time, but also in some language, in different languages, the sentence structure is different. So we had recently a complaint that a Japanese translation was very poor because the translation wasn't right. And what we found out that they were comparing cue by cue, and the Japanese translation rearranged the words, and so the things that were in the English first part of the sentence were in the Japanese second part of the sentence. So when you did the comparison of cue by cue, you got a very skewed view of the quality of the translation. One thing that's very easy in text translation excuse me, is punctuation. Obviously, in text translation, the punctuation is always there. So if you're dealing with a video that doesn't have a script, punctuation is quite difficult. So let's meet Henrietta. Henrietta's a chicken, and you wouldn't think she has much to do with translation, but let me explain. So if you look at the sentence or the segment of a sentence, let's eat, comma, Henrietta, you see Henrietta there on the left waiting for her dinner and quite happily. However, if you remove that comma and say, let's eat Henrietta, you get a very different situation. And that comma is very, very important to Henrietta. That's obviously a frivolous example, but you can see that punctuation can make a significant difference in the context and in the meaning of a translation. Another thing is that caption files, subtitle files, have many different file types. The two most common are SRT files and VTT files. SRT files, but both of these are text files, and these are the files that are added to the video player to provide the CC tracks that you get when you click on the CC button. SRTs are very simple. Excuse me. And they are just the line number, the start time, the end time, and the text. VTT files are more XML-like text files, and they are similar, but they have formatting involved with them. These are actually the same subtitle, and I should have shown you what the subtitle looks like, but the subtitle is moved up and to the left to avoid a lower third, and it is also underlined. So you can see in the SRT file that none of that is related. So if you use that SRT file while the work had been done to position and format the subtitle, it'll be lost. Whereas in the VTT file, you see the align variable and also the underline tags that show you that's the case. SRTs are the simplest and the most widely supported and have been around the longest time. VTT is the W3, the World Wide Web Consortium standard for displaying time text in the HTML5 player. It allows formatting, and I think this is going to be the file format of the near future. You may have seen that Netflix have come out with another format, and you can never discount people the size and the importance of Netflix, but I think the VTT file is going to be the file of the near future. Just to give you an idea, these are the different types of caption files they are. I'm not going to go over them, of course, but there are a whole bunch of them. Many of them are broadcast formats, which rely on frame rate. The one thing I didn't mention about the SRT and VTT file is they don't use frame rates at all. They just use times. So the player knows, because of the time, when to put the captions on and off the screen. But a lot of these broadcast formats do use a frame rate to convert the time into which frame the captions appear. And also they're binary formats, so you can't look at them using regular text editors. So a little bit of the history of video and therefore video translation. This amazes me that YouTube started in 2005. The first iPhone appeared in 2007. And the cost of videos is coming down. So if you look at a Hollywood movie, the price of a Hollywood movie can be about $225,000 per minute. A business video with scripts and directors and audio engineers, etc., can be between $500 and $10,000 per minute. And do-it-yourself videos, which everybody's got a camera in their pocket these days, are zero, are free. You have the equipment with you. You can do it whenever you want, and reasonably, you can make it a very reasonable quality. We do some captioning for something called the Mobile Film Festival, which are 1-minute videos that are completely made on mobile devices, iPhones, things like that. And these are Hollywood quality movies. You would not know that they were filmed on phones. Marketers discovered video in about 2017, and when that happened, video usage increased dramatically. Pandemic accelerated the uptake, and significant amount of video being produced these days. So where we are today, it's a small percentage of LSPs work. Slater recently said that the size of the audiovisual world is about $5 billion compared to $50 billion for the total translation world. Many people are doing it the old-fashioned way, using a video player and a spreadsheet. And video translation management systems are the poor relation. Some have good technology, and it's improving significantly, but few have functionality for the linguists. So spelling and grammar checking for multiple languages, glossary tools, subtitle specifications as part of the translation interface, and machine translation for video. And that, again, comes the line by line world where you need to unwrap the work. You need to translate it and then rewrap it, retime it, resegment it, so you get the context of the previous sentences or the surrounding sentences. So where will we be tomorrow? I think we need to make the functionality from text translation useful for timed text. The translation memory and fuzzy matches for speech patterns, that becomes very difficult when you, as I said earlier, you've got the ums and the ahs, etc. We need to integrate with other systems, project management, billing, and we can also analyze the video for content. So before the work is done, before the translation is done, we can look at the content and see how complex it is, and see if that see which group of translators need to be assigned that work. The interesting, exciting, concerning, worrying thing is the machine-generated voiceovers. It's here today, but there's a lot of work, manual work needed to make it sound good. There are many variables that are needed. There's the emotion of the word, the prosody, and prosody is intonation, stress, tempo, rhythm, things like that. Emphasis of the words, effects, voices. It's a very difficult user interface. We hear many people say they use synthetic voices, but I think they aren't being 100% honest in the amount of post-production they need to do. There are a couple of interesting platforms that I've looked at over the last couple of weeks, one of which is a company called Papercup, and that's a totally machine-generated workflow. However, it's a single workflow. So the video is transcribed using automatic speech recognition, and then it is machine translated, and then the synthetic speech voice generation. We know from painful experience that those ASR and the machine translation of ASR is not high quality at the moment. It'll improve, but it's not there at the moment. Marvel.ai, which is a Veritone company, allow you to create voices. So, for example, I could make I could create my own voice in different languages. So that will be useful for organizations that want their CEO, for example, to be heard in many different languages. This is from Slater's latest paper about audiovisual translation. And these are the 2020 mentions about voiceovers in research, in university research. And you can see that voice cloning and voice synthesis and speech synthesis are by far the top of the list of things that are going on. So the future, who knows when this is going to be? I think one of the holy grails is to have a artificial intelligence able to translate the on-screen text, and have the ability to have a fully automated workflow, which is ingesting the video, caption it, translate it, voiceover, and then create the multilingual video files, and then push it back to where it's needed. I think it's a nice idea, but I don't think we humans have got anything to worry about in the near future. So, finally, some thoughts. The fastest growth video is the fastest growth sector in the language industry. Video is getting easier and cheaper to make, and to make well. We've seen a significant increase in the amount of video because of the pandemic, and the public like it. There's a tremendous amount of statistics on how many people buy when they see a video, how they improve their customer service when they can see how to do something. And it's not the same as text translation. Traditional LSPs can learn to do it. They can use a translation memory, a video translation memory system like ours or one of the others on the market, or they can outsource it. The technology is improving, but we're still learning how to do it really well. So I don't know if there's enough time or if there are any questions, but I'd be very happy to take them. Or if you have any questions, please send me an email, and I would be delighted to answer them.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
We do have a special question asker for you here.
Ah, all right.
Surprise, surprise. Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm very well.
Did you mention you'll see me here?
I think you said you were going to be here.
All right, so you kind of expected it. Listen, my question would be about Netflix and the like. So we have so many video TMS being developed, and yours is one of the most interesting ones. But at the same time, Netflix has developed their platform, right? The originator, the second incarnation of the platform. Now there's Disney Plus, there's Peacock, there's Amazon Prime, and so on. What are they using? What's the technology that powers those in-house OTT teams? How do they work?
I don't know. If you speak to them and they would like a platform, please mention ours. Their requirements are I don't know if they're different, but they're more precise, I guess, is the answer, and they're willing to spend a lot more money. And there are companies like Zoo Digital that are spending a lot of time trying to conquer that market. So I would guess that they're working together to get something that makes more sense for their very precise, specific marketplace. I think it's a very good question, though, and it's something I'll look into. That they might need help.
Then allow me to rephrase. So we don't know what they are using, but do you see more people doing video localization on the corporate side, not the LSP side, but internal teams inside corporation, inside marketing teams that use your platform, inside maybe support teams? Who are the corporate users of your class of software?
They're usually corporate communications groups. So they have a message they want to portray to the outside world, and the outside world could be their own company, but it's the office of the president maybe wants to talk to their staff, or it could be how-to videos. It could be anything like that. But basically, it's anybody with a. I think that the thing that we internally say is that video is a great medium for storytelling. And anytime you've got a story to tell, whether it's the traditional entertainment story or a commercial story, then you're not going to go wrong by using video. And many of these organizations within businesses have their own story to tell, whether it's a financial story, a product story, a strategy story. So we're seeing many people within organizations finding their voice using video and using our platform and our services to localize them in several different languages.
Oh, thank you very much, Dave. We were delighted to hear you. It was interesting for our students to learn more about the history, because we started in the morning from the national, but it's also interesting to learn about the international overview. And now, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.